Ladies, let's be honest for a minute. You've probably wondered why your man seems to think about sex so differently than you do. Maybe you've asked yourself why he needs physical intimacy to feel close, or why he seems to shut down emotionally after being intimate. Perhaps you've been frustrated by behaviors that just don't make sense to you, or confused by the way he approaches intimacy compared to how you do. Well, today we're diving deep into the male mind and uncovering 10 scientific truths about men and sexuality that might completely change how you understand the men in your life. These aren't just opinions or stereotypes. These are research-backed insights from psychology, biology, and relationship studies. I'm not here to make excuses for anyone or say that all men are the same. What I am here to do is share what decades of research have revealed about male psychology and sexuality. Some of these facts might surprise you, some might challenge what you've always believed, and others might finally help explain behaviors that have confused you for years. So if you've ever wanted to truly understand how men experience sex and intimacy, stick around. By the end of this video, you'll have insights that could transform your relationships and help you connect with the men in your life on a much deeper level. Number 1. Sex is men's primary path to emotional intimacy. Here's something that might blow your mind. For most men, sex isn't just about physical pleasure. It's actually their main highway to emotional connection. While women often need to feel emotionally close before they want to be physically intimate, men typically work in reverse. Research published in multiple psychology journals shows that men have been conditioned from childhood to suppress emotional expression. They're taught that showing vulnerability, fear, or sadness is a sign of weakness. The only emotions that society deems acceptable for men are anger, aggression, and sexual desire. So what happens when a man wants to feel emotionally connected to his partner? He turns to the one form of intimacy he's been given permission to express: physical intimacy. For many men, sex is the only way they know how to be completely open and unguarded with another person. This isn't because men are shallow or only care about the physical act. It's because they've been programmed to believe that sex is their safe space for vulnerability. When your man initiates physical intimacy, he might actually be trying to say, "I want to feel close to you," in the only language he's been taught to speak. Understanding this can completely change how you view your partner's sexual needs. It's not always about the physical act itself. It's often about his deep desire to connect with you emotionally through the one avenue he feels safe using. Number 2, the male refractory period is real biology, not laziness. Let's talk about something that frustrates a lot of women: why men seem to completely check out after orgasm. You know what I'm talking about. One minute he's passionate and engaged, and the next minute he's rolling over and falling asleep or becoming emotionally distant. Before you take this personally, you need to understand that this isn't a choice your man is making. It's called the refractory period, and it's a biological reality that affects all men. During the refractory period, which can last anywhere from a few minutes to several hours depending on the man's age and health, it's physiologically impossible for men to maintain arousal or have another orgasm. But it's not just about the physical aspect. Research shows that compounds called prostaglandins and a peptide called somatostatin flood the male nervous system after ejaculation, literally reducing sexual arousal and making men less responsive to stimulation. This biological response also affects men emotionally and mentally. Their bodies are essentially forcing them into a recovery mode. It's not that they suddenly don't care about you or that they're being selfish. Their nervous system is literally telling them to rest and recover. The refractory period gets longer as men age. A 20-year-old might be ready to go again in minutes, while a 40-year-old might need hours or even a full day. This isn't a reflection of how attracted he is to you or how much he enjoyed the experience. It's simply biology doing what biology does. Number 3, men's sex drive isn't always higher than women's. Here's a myth that needs to die: the idea that men always want sex more than women. Recent research shows this isn't nearly as simple as we've been led to believe. A groundbreaking study found that when you remove social pressure, the differences between male and female sexual desire almost disappear. When researchers used lie detector tests, women reported sexual behaviors much more similar to men than when they thought peers would see their responses. Men have been given social permission to express sexual desire openly, while women have been taught to suppress theirs. This creates a false impression that men want sex more. Even more surprising, research shows that 14 to 19% of men regularly experience problematically low sexual desire. When researchers studied actual couples, they found men were just as likely as women to be the partner with lower sexual desire. About half of all couples have similar levels of desire. Number 4, performance anxiety is more common than you think. Let's address something that most men are too embarrassed to talk about, but that affects millions of them: sexual performance anxiety. This is way more common than most women realize, and it can completely change how men approach sex and intimacy. Performance anxiety isn't just about erectile dysfunction, though that's certainly part of it. It's about the enormous pressure men feel to be sexual performers. From a young age, boys are taught that their worth as men is tied to their sexual performance. They're supposed to always be ready, always know what they're doing, and always satisfy their partner. This creates a cycle that can be devastating. A man might have one experience where things don't go perfectly. Maybe he finishes too quickly, or he has trouble maintaining an erection, or he feels like he didn't satisfy his partner. Instead of seeing this as a normal part of human sexuality, he starts worrying about it happening again. That worry creates anxiety, and anxiety is the enemy of sexual function. The more anxious he becomes about performing, the more likely he is to have problems, which creates even more anxiety. It becomes a vicious cycle that can destroy a man's confidence and enjoyment of sex. Research shows that this performance mindset leads many men to be self-conscious, self-critical, worried, tense, and anxious during sex. Instead of being present and enjoying the experience, they're monitoring their performance and worrying about whether they're doing everything right. Number 5, visual stimulation works differently than you think. You've heard that men are more visual than women when it comes to sex. While there's some truth to this, the reality is more complex than the stereotype suggests. Research shows that men's brains respond differently to visual sexual stimuli, with stronger activation in areas associated with visual processing. But this doesn't mean men are shallow or only care about looks. What it means is that men often process sexual attraction and arousal through visual channels first. For many men, seeing their partner or thinking about visual aspects of intimacy can be how their brain gets ready for sexual connection. Recent studies found that when you look at actual sexual behavior, rather than just brain scans, the differences between men and women become much smaller. The visual aspect also isn't just about physical appearance. Many men are visually stimulated by seeing their partner's pleasure and the overall visual experience of intimacy. Number 6, men compartmentalize sex and emotions differently. Men seem to separate sex from emotions in ways that might seem impossible to women. This isn't because men don't have emotions, it's because they've been trained to compartmentalize differently. From childhood, boys are taught to separate their emotional lives from their physical experiences. They're told to toughen up and keep feelings to themselves. This conditioning creates adults who put different aspects of their lives into separate mental boxes. For many men, this means they can engage in physical intimacy without immediately connecting it to deep emotional processing. The emotions are there, they just process them separately or later. This compartmentalization can be a survival mechanism. In a world that punishes men for emotional expression, being able to separate physical and emotional experiences allows them to function without being overwhelmed by feelings they're not supposed to have. Number 7, the male code affects sexual expression. There's an invisible set of rules most men live by that hugely impacts how they experience sexuality. Psychologists call it the male code, an unspoken agreement that men should avoid feeling pain, fear, weakness, or vulnerability. This code teaches men that emotions like anger, aggression, and sexual desire are acceptable, while sadness, fear, or tenderness are signs of weakness. Most men learn to suppress their emotional lives and express themselves through the few channels considered acceptable. When it comes to sexuality, men often use sex as their primary way of expressing emotions they can't express any other way. Physical intimacy becomes their outlet for tenderness, vulnerability, love, and connection. The male code also creates pressure for men to always be ready for sex and never show uncertainty in sexual situations. This can make sex feel like a performance rather than intimate connection. Number 8, men experience sexual rejection differently. Sexual rejection hits men differently than women. For many men, sexual rejection isn't just about not having sex. It's about feeling rejected as a person and as a man. Because men have been taught that their sexual performance and desirability are tied to their worth as men, sexual rejection can feel like fundamental rejection of their masculinity. When a man initiates sex and is turned down, he might interpret this as, "I'm not attractive," or "I'm not a real man." Men are typically expected to be the initiators, meaning they face rejection more often and have fewer opportunities to feel desired by their partners. Research shows men who experience frequent sexual rejection can develop anxiety around initiating sex. Understanding this sensitivity isn't about never saying no. It's about recognizing how rejection affects him so you can find ways to decline that don't feel like personal attacks. Number 9, testosterone affects more than just sex drive. When people think about testosterone in men, they think about sex drive. But testosterone affects energy levels, confidence, mood stability, motivation, and how men process emotions. When testosterone levels are optimal, men feel more confident, energetic, and emotionally stable. When levels are low, men can experience depression, anxiety, fatigue, and decreased motivation. This means changes in your partner's sexual behavior might be signs of broader changes in his physical and mental health. A man who suddenly seems less interested in sex might also be dealing with stress, decreased energy, or mood changes, all related to hormonal fluctuations. Testosterone levels naturally decline with age, but can also be affected by stress, lack of sleep, poor diet, and health conditions. Supporting your partner's overall health can have a direct impact on your sexual relationship. Number 10, men want emotional connection. 2, here's the final truth. Men want emotional intimacy just as much as women do. The difference is in how they express this desire and how they've been taught to pursue it. Research consistently shows that men in relationships want more emotional intimacy with their partners. They want to feel understood, accepted, and emotionally close. The challenge is they often don't have the tools or permission to pursue emotional intimacy directly. Many men have never been taught how to identify emotions, express them verbally, or create emotional intimacy through conversation. Instead, they've learned to seek emotional connection through physical intimacy, shared activities, and acts of service. Men often express love and seek connection through actions rather than words. They might show emotional intimacy by wanting to spend time together, being physically affectionate, doing things for their partners, or sharing activities they enjoy. Conclusion: understanding male sexuality isn't about making excuses for behavior or accepting things that don't work for you. It's about recognizing that men and women often experience and express sexuality differently, and that these differences are largely shaped by biology, psychology, and social conditioning. When you understand how your partner experiences sex and intimacy, you can work together to create a relationship that satisfies both of your needs. You can communicate more effectively, avoid misunderstandings, and build deeper intimacy based on understanding rather than assumptions. Remember, every man is different, and these insights are general patterns, not universal truths. The most important thing is to communicate openly with your partner about your needs, desires, and experiences, and to approach each other with curiosity and compassion rather than judgment. These 10 insights can be the foundation for deeper conversations with your partner about how you both experience intimacy and what you both need to feel connected and satisfied in your relationship. If this video helped you understand the men in your life better, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more relationship insights. And remember, understanding is the first step toward building stronger, more satisfying relationships for everyone involved.